Okay, so in this lesson, you're going to write the standard form of a circle given the general form of the circle. All right, it's not a difficult lesson, it's fairly easy. A couple of things you have to remember though. First of all, you have to remember that the standard form of a circle, what that looks like. So the standard form looks like this: x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So that's the standard form where hk is your center. And remember, it's x minus 8, y minus, so h is your x coordinate of the center, and k is the uh, y coordinate of the center. And the radius is just r. Okay? The other thing you have to remember is this. So you remember the uh, standard form of a circle has a binomial squared, a binomial squared, a binomial squared. So there are two binomial squares involved. So basically what's going to happen is this. You're going to have to complete the square from the general form. So part of the general form is going to look like this. You're going to have let's say x squared plus, let's say, 6x. All right, so let's remember how to complete the square and the x's. So remember, what you want to do is you want to rewrite this um, as a binomial squared. So in other words, you need to add something. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this again. You got to add something to to x squared plus 6x, so that way you get a perfect square trinomial. Remember that lesson? So it's a perfect square trinomial. And once it becomes a perfect square trinomial, it is now going to be a binomial squared. All right, so let's kind of review how we do this. So first of all, remember the x squared has to have a coefficient of 1. Then what you do is you take the coefficient of x, which is 6, you divide by 2, and then I get 3. You take that number 3 and you square it, and that becomes a 9. So that's what you add to these two terms. And so now this should be a perfect square trinomial, which means that you can factor it as x plus 3 squared. Okay, so that's the idea you're going to use in these problems we're about to do. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about what the general form is. General form of a circle. So the general form of a circle, if you take the handout out for this lesson on section 2.8, so the general form of a circle looks like this: x squared plus y squared, so notice the coefficient of x squared and y squared are 1, plus some number times x, plus some number times y, plus a constant equals 0. So that's how it looks. So it's going to be x squared plus y squared plus some number times x plus some real number times y plus some constant equals 0. So that's the general form. So let's do this example. So the directions will say complete the square. So I complete the square. Well, actually, let's just write it like this. Write the equation of a circle. Write the equation of a circle. In standard form. Okay. Then graph the circle. Okay, so number 1. All right, so let's suppose we had this. Let's suppose we had x squared plus y squared plus 6x plus 2y plus 6 equal 0. So x squared plus y squared plus 6x plus 2y plus 6 equals 0. All right, so here's the idea. Okay, so if this part wasn't here, this part here, I'm sorry, I'm going to cover this y squared and everything else. So that if what I'm covering wasn't there, x squared plus 6x, that kind of looks like the one we just did a while ago. So you're going to complete the square and the x's. So what you want to do is this. You want to put all the x's together, put all the y's together, and bring this constant to the other side. So again, I'm going to say this. Put the x terms together, put the y terms together, and bring the constant to the other side. Okay? So here's going to be the first step. You're going to say x squared plus 6x plus, leave a blank, and then plus y squared plus 2y plus blank equal, and then when you bring the 6 over, you're going to subtract 6, so it becomes negative 6. All right. So you're going to complete the square in the x's, you complete the square in the y. So you can complete the square twice when you're dealing with a circle. It's fairly simple. You just have to remember the idea about completing a square. All right, but remember, you leave all the variables one side, bring the constant to the other, put the x's together, leave a blank here. Make sure you understand why you're leaving a blank, because you're going to complete the square in the x, so which means you're going to add something to here, and what you do to one side, you're going to do to the other. You're going to see in a little while how that's going to look. Okay, so let's complete the square in the x. So remember, you take, so we're completing, I'm going to do the work here. So you take half the coefficient of x, so it's 6 divided by 2 equals 3, and then we square 3, and we get 9. But remember, it's an equation. This is an equation, so you got to keep it balanced. So so if I add 9 to the left side, I've got to add 9 to the right side. Okay? All right, now let's do the y's. So the coefficient of y is 2. I must divide by 2. I get 1. Then I must square the 1, and I get, 2 divided by 2 is 1. Then I must square the 1, and I get 1. So now I'm going to add 1 to both sides. Okay? So I completed the square in the x's. I completed the square in the y's. I added 9, I added 1, added 1. So now this should be a perfect square trinomial, and this should be a perfect square trinomial, which means I can write it as a binomial squared. And then over here, a negative 6 plus 9 is 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. Okay, so here, when I factor this trinomial, I'm going to get x plus 3 squared. When I factor this trinomial, I'm going to get y plus 1. So now, so that's your answer in terms of this right here is the equation of a circle in standard form. So that's standard form. Now the center is, remember, it's got to be x minus. So don't say the center is 3, 1. That's incorrect. The center is not 3, 1. Because remember, it's got to look like this. It's got to be x minus a negative 3 squared plus y minus a negative 1 squared equal 4. And so your center is negative 3, negative 1. Okay? So negative 3, negative 1. So you got to be careful. So your center is negative 3, comma, negative 1. And the radius is the square root of 4, which is 2. So it's always the square root of this number. It's always the square root of this number. Because remember, this right here is 4. This 4 is really 2 squared. So your radius is just 2. Alright? So in terms of, let me just mention this, in terms of the blanks for the worksheet, so it's going to say standard form. Standard form. You must say this. You must say from here, you must say this one right here, x plus 3 squared plus y plus 1 squared equal 4. Don't say x minus negative 3. Leave it as x plus 3. You use the green part to help you determine the center. Because the mistake people make is that if they don't think in their mind x minus y minus, they're going to say 3 comma 1, and that is not the center. The center is actually negative 3 comma negative 1. Okay, so that's a standard form. And then you're going to say the center is in the blank. Center is negative 3, negative 1, and then you're going to say r equal blank, so the radius would be 2. Alright, now we're going to use this information to graph. Okay, so we can use this information to graph. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and graph it on this grid. So this is going to be number 1, All right, number 1. And so you're told that the center is -3, -1. So 1, 2, 3, -3, -1. So there's a center. Now remember, to graph the circle, use the radius to help you. So the radius, remember, is 2. The radius is 2. So the best thing to do is to go 2 units to the right, 2 units up, 2 units to the left, 2 units down, and then connect the dots. So as a circle. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then 1, 2. And then just draw the circle. Just do the best you can. And so there's your circle. Okay? All right. Number 2. So let's look at number 2. All right, number 2. Suppose that my general form, remember this is your general form, so suppose my general form was, or is x squared plus y squared minus 10x minus 6y minus 30 equals 0. Alright, so remember that's your general form right here. That's the general form. So you want to go from this to standard form. Okay, so you want to rewrite this as standard form. So to rewrite this, to go from general form to standard form, you're going to have to complete the square. Okay, so you can complete the square on the x's and the y's. Okay, and the y's. All right, so here we go. So you're going to rewrite this. You're going to put all the x's together. You're going to put all the x's, all the x's together, and you're going to put all the y's together. And then you're going to bring the constant to the other side. All right, it's that simple. So I'm going to get x squared minus 6y plus, remember it's always plus, some number, plus, and then new y's, y squared minus 10, sorry, that's, excuse me, you're going to put the x's together, so x squared minus 10x plus some number, and then plus y squared minus 6, that's a 6, y plus some number equal 30. So you can add 30 to both sides. Okay? Alright. So now let's complete the square on the x's and then complete the square on the y's. So we can complete the square on the x's. We're going to complete the square on the y's. Now remember, what you add here, you got to add to the other side. Got to keep that equation balanced. Okay, so I'm going to take the coefficient of x. Now, first of all, remember that the x squared must be 1. Alright. So we're going to take the coefficient of x, which is negative 10. Divide by 2, I get negative 5. Okay, now don't add negative 5 to both sides, because remember, you got to square this. So you're going to take negative 5 and you're going to square, and there's going to be a positive 25. And that's what you add to both sides. A positive 25 to the left, a positive 25 to the right. Okay, let's go to the y's. So the y, I take the coefficient of y, which is negative 6. I divide by 2, and I get negative 3. Now, what do you do negative 3? Well, you square it. So negative 3 squared. Now be careful when I square. Notice when I square negative 5, I put negative 5 in parentheses, and I put negative 3 in parentheses because this right here, if it's in parentheses, it means negative 5 times itself, which is what it is supposed to be. And that should always be a positive number. Same thing here. That should always be a positive number, and that's positive 9. So add 9 to both sides. And so now I can factor this as a binomial squared. I can factor this trinomial as a binomial squared. And then 30 plus 25 plus 9 is, let's see, so that's 55, 65, subtract 164. So that's 64. And then here, when I factor this, notice the last sign is always going to be positive here, if you think about it. So that means that these signs are going to be the same. It's always going to be that middle sign. So that's going to be a minus. That's going to be a minus. So I get x minus. And then all you think about is this. What number times itself is 25? Well, the answer is 5. And then y minus. What number times itself is 9? And the answer is 3. And so there's your equation of the circle in standard form. So this is standard form. Okay, so that's one of your answers. Now you got to find the center. Okay, center. And then you got to find the radius. Well, this one's easy because it's already x minus y minus. Now be careful, don't say the center's -5, -3. Because remember, the standard form of a circle has to be x minus y minus. All right. So in this case, your h is 5 and your k is 3. So you get 5, comma 3. And the radius, remember 64 right here? Remember 64 is 8 squared. Or to find the radius, all you do is just take the square root of 64, which is just 8. All right, so 8. Okay, now let's go ahead and graph this. I am going to go ahead and use this graph. Now you can barely read some of the grid lines, but it'll be fine. And then you get a little bit close, you can see this is -7, this is -10, this is -12. Okay. All right. So I plot the center. I graph the point that's the center. So the center is 5, 3. So 5, 3 is 1, 2, 3 right here. So there's the center. Okay. Now from that center, I'm going to use the radius. The radius is 8. So I'm going to go 8 units to the right, 8 units up, 8 units to the left, 8 units down, and I connect the dot using circle. All right, so 1 from the center you go to the right 8 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and let's say 8's here. So I had to estimate where the 8th unit was. I'm going to go 8 units up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's about here. So 3, when we're going up, so 3 plus 8 should be 11. Okay? This is 5 right here, so 5 plus 8 should be 13. All right, subtract 8. Go to the left 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Go down 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, and then you just connect them. Do the best you can with drawing the circle. Do the best you can with drawing the circle. And there's your circle. Okay? Alright, so that takes care of number 2. Okay, so this is for number 2. Alright, let's look at number 3. Look at number 3. Right, number 3. You have this one now. So here's your journal form. You have x squared plus y squared plus 8x minus 2y minus 8 equals 0. Alright, so there's your journal form. So now you want to write it in standard form. So remember, you're gonna put the x's together, you're gonna put the y's together, and then you're gonna bring the constants to the other side. So I'm gonna add 8 to both sides. That's the first thing I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna put the x's together, put the y's together. Okay? So I get x squared plus 8x, and then I'm gonna add some number. Once I do that, this can now be a binomial squared. Plus, and then the y's. Y squared minus 2y plus some number. And once I factor it, that's going to be another binomial squared. And that's going to equal 8. And then whatever these numbers are. Okay? Alright, so let's go ahead and complete the square in the x's. So remember, these are x squared and y squared. R has a coefficient of 1. So I take the coefficient of 8, which is coefficient of x, which is 8, divide by 2, and I get 4. Alright, now remember, don't add 4 to both sides because you're forgetting to square this 4. So you got to square the 4. So 4 squared is 16. So that goes here. Now let's do the y's. So I take the coefficient of y, which is -2. I divide by 2, and I get -1. Now remember, you got to square this. So -1 squared is a positive 1, and that's what you add. Oh, I forgot to add to both sides. Okay, I'm sorry. 6 plus 16 here, I got to say plus 16. Plus 1 here, I got to say plus 1. Okay, so what you do to the left, you do to the right. What you do to the left, you do to the right. Okay, so now I can factor this. So this is going to be x plus, alright, so what number times itself is 16? The answer is 4. And if you follow this out, if you say x plus 4 times x plus 4, you're going to get this back. You're going to get a middle term, 8x. Okay, and then x times x is x squared, and then 4 times 4 is 16. Okay, over here, That's going to be y minus 1. Because what number times itself is 1? It's 1. And then remember, the sign of the middle term is negative, so this has to be negative. And then that's going to equal 8 plus 1 is 9. 9 plus 16 is 25. All right, so there's your standard form of the equation of a circle. So that's what you would put in the blank. So there's your standard form. Okay, now let's find the center, and let's find the radius. All right, so the center, remember, it's got to be x minus y minus. All right, so you got to think about this. So this x plus 4 is really x minus a negative 4. X minus a negative 4. So there's your h right here. Your h is negative 4. And this is already y minus, so your k is positive 1. All right, so my center is negative 4 comma positive 1. And my radius is, remember 25. If you want to think about that, 25 is 5 squared. So the 5 is your radius. Or you can just take the square root of 25. Whatever number this is, take the square root of it. So you get 5. All right, so the center is negative 4, 1. And the radius is 5. Okay, so let's go ahead and do it on this one again. So negative 4, 1 is right here. So there's negative 4, 1. Negative 4, 1. There's my center. Okay, the radius, we'll go 5 units to the right, 5 units up, 5 units to the left, 5 units down, and then connect the dots. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, oops, do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then just connect the dots as a circle. Do the best you can, and this is what you get. So there's your circle. All right, and then finally, so this is number 3. All right, so finally, let's do number 4. So number 4 will be this. All right, suppose we had x squared minus 2x plus y squared minus 15 equals 0. All right, so x squared minus 2x plus y squared minus 15 equals 0. So just as before, you bring all the variables one side, constant the other. So that means I got to add 15 to both sides. So I get x squared minus 2x plus y squared equal 15. Sorry. All right, let's talk about this. So we put the x's together, put the y's together. So the x's are fairly easy because there are two terms with an x in it. So x squared minus 2x. I'm going to add something to this. Now look at this right here. There's no y term. There's just a y squared. So that's fine. Since there's no y term, just write it as y squared. That's all you do. You're not going to add anything to this, so don't say plus some blank. You're only going to, and you can see what that's going to look like in a little while. You're only going to complete the square if there's an x squared and an x term. You're only going to complete the square if there's a y squared and a y term. Okay? Equal 15. All right, so here's what you do. So you're going to take the coefficient of x here, which is negative 2, divide by 2, and you get negative 1. Remember, you got to square this negative 1, and I get positive 1, and that's what you add to both sides. And then you're done, because watch. This right here is a binomial squared. This right here, I can write as a binomial squared. And then over here, that's just 16. This part's easy for you because it's a trinomial, so that's going to be x minus 1 squared. Because remember, what number times itself is 1? Well, it's 1. And this sign here has to be this sign here. Now look at this right here. And we did something like this before. Y squared. Well, isn't y squared y minus 0 squared? Y minus 0 is y, and you get y squared. So that's why if it's just y squared and there's no y term, or if this was an x squared and no x term, it's always going to be y minus 0 squared. And so your center, so there's your answer for standard form. That's the answer for standard form. And the center, remember, is hk, so x minus y minus. So your center is just 1, 0. There's your center, 1 comma 0. The 0 comes from the fact that it's just y squared. And then your radius would be the square root of 16, which is just 4. Alright, so let's go ahead and graph this. I'm going to go ahead and graph it on this one, so this will be number 4. So the center is 1, 0. So 1, 0 is here. There's the center. And then the radius is 4. So I'm going to go 4 units to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 units up. 1, 2, from the center now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, right here. 4 units to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 4 units down. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you just connect the dots. Right, drawing it as a circle. Again, do the best you can. Alright, and there's your circle. Alright, so that's going to take care of this lesson. So basically, the main point was that if the equation is written in general form, you have to then write in standard form by completing the square in the x and the y's. And then you rewrite it as a binomial squared. And then you find the center, the radius, and you graph. Okay? So that was the main idea. Alright, so that's going to take care of this part.